So yes, today Pixar brought out yet another Disney Plus spin-off TV series, and I've not really been too swept up by them as of late. We've seen the likes of Monsters at Work representing the future sequel storyline potential of the Monsters Inc. universe. Occasionally we'll get one-off little shorts like Doug Days or Carl Goes on a Date for Up. There's a time when Lego did a crossover with a bunch of different Pixar movies to give us a mini-series of that. And of course Cars has brought out all kind of TV series along the way. They're fine, they're palatable, it's content. So what a surprise, the very latest Pixar project to actually be released, Inside Out 2, is getting its own TV spin-off, taking place in between the events of Inside 1 and Inside Out 2. This is Dream Productions. And since we've already seen a general broad sweep across Riley's brains twice now, and I don't know how exactly they're going to do it in a third movie, or at least in a way that's original and enticing, instead for this TV series, for 4 short episodes, 20 minutes each, so for about an hour and a half, we are focused pretty much entirely in the Hollywood studio setting of Riley's brain, focusing entirely on the moments when she's asleep and dreaming. And when I saw this being announced, I was whelmed. It seemed alright. Inside Out is one of those things that has so much length for potential and creativity. I love the pun work, and I'm angry every time I don't think of something that already exists. But at the same time, seeing these Beanly characters bumbling around just made me think this is a little bit generic, a little bit not necessarily safe, but nah, you know? It very much is just a little side piece of Inside Out. No wonder it's only an hour and a half. They probably can't fill it up that much without too much influential creativity in there. It's just a little side pocket of stuff on the side. Oh, how far I was wrong. I would go on to say that despite some little critiques here and there, this is by far my absolute favorite Pixar TV series spin-off. This is, to a certain extent, essentially Inside Out 3. I mean, 90 minutes is practically a movie. And wowee, have they managed to chuck in so many intellectual little brain-related, sleep-related jokes, ideas, and concepts. It is to the point that I once again stand here aggravated by the fact that I didn't make an entire video trying to come up with the plot line for this movie and all of the different ideas they could have explored. There are 2 major sleep-related things they explore that I'm like, oh my god, why wasn't I expecting this? There is no other movie franchise like Inside Out that makes me feel stupid that I didn't come up with this next funky idea they came up with, like sarcasm and the train of thought. And this one's not even like a pun, it's just outright things that happen. Now I'm going to give a general overview for the beginning parts of this video before getting into the spoilery stuff. Don't worry, I'll tell you when we get there. But okay, let's go to a little bit of a general overview of what to expect from this TV series. For one thing, it is all shot in a very interesting format. This is all one big mockumentary. There is no actual camera crew behind the documentary format, but there's invisible camera work that the Bean people are always magically able to turn to and talk to us about. And it really helps bring the whole vibe of the TV series together. We've seen this kind of documentary style before in the likes of Zootropolis Plus, not even Pixar, that's Disney. And it works really well because it just fits the vibe of being a meta commentary on all of Hollywood studios, as well as going into this interesting new diversion of Riley's life. As we said, it's all about the dream sequences that Riley goes on. It's another enigma of how our brains work, and instead of bumbling about big plot lines and emotional character arcs, it's simply the idea that Riley has this upcoming prom dance and has some thoughts and thinkings about it. Add in a little bit of Riley is aging up, and so some of our old dream directors are trying to keep up with the times as she goes into the early stages of teenagehood, and you just have another-ish ensemble of characters trying to work out their way for what's best for Riley. In so many ways, it feels like this 2-hour stint has all the same content of a full theatrical movie, just a little bit more spread out and diluted, in a way that's not necessarily bad, but it is also still condensed a little bit at the same time. It's an interesting one. Our main protagonist of this series is Paula Persimmon. They are a veteran director in charge of controlling some of Riley's dreams, and she's a little bit behind on the times. Whilst having such great achievements in the past, such as mostly organizing toddler Riley's more babyish, cartoony, fun dreams, a lot of her old memories are now seen as cringe and out of date for a Riley that's now in her tweens. And in episode 1, this all comes to a head as one of her major dreams has a catastrophic clash out for being a little bit too babyish and causing every disaster mid-dream as it goes. Now this episode out of the 4 I think is my least favorite because one problem with this mockumentary format is it very quickly feels a little bit overwhelming all at once. This idea of exploring the dream part of the brain is of course going to need a lot of exposition and a lot of ideas spread out, but I felt like I was bombarded with information and characters far too quickly that I thought the whole TV series was going to be this messy mush of ideas all at the start. And to be fair, I did go into this series on a bit of a back foot, not expecting great things, so it turned me around eventually, but yeah, because on top of the fact that we have Paula Persimmon, the old school character, we have her assistant director, who's now been promoted to director, we have a new assistant director slash co-director slash guerrilla director kind of guy. He's usually a daydream director and very much that artsy-fartsy kind of guy with very particular ideals on art. He is related to the head of studios, the big boss of the Dream production, and they're really the only characters you need to know. But also, at the same time as learning about all of these characters, we hear of 4 or 5 other directors all mushed together. They're just little side gags of just different genres of film. But when I first opened this TV series, I thought I legitimately had to keep up with like 9 characters immediately, and it was far too much. But hey, at least in the sequel, I'm now ready to consume these other content creators. A sports director, a nightmare director, an action director, and a comedy director. Those are the 4 other ones. Easy to remember now, but there you go. And on the fact that you get little cameos from the actual emotions up top reacting to some of the dreams as they go on, and it's just a nice little sequence. But of course, the thing that really flourishes for me, the things I really like out of the Inside Out saga, is the interesting ways they try to adapt reality with this cartoon world, such as little things like there being a little reality filter, kind of like more rose-tinted glasses, that goes over the camera so that what Riley sees on set actually becomes the manifestation of more dream-like visuals. If you wear a giant cardboard prop on your head and then the camera puts on that filter, you become that exact prop that you're designing. It's a very neat, small little idea, but just works so well in showcasing the creative imagination behind the Pixar crew that this just feels like another Pixar classic. Add that along clear creator gripes like calling out the writer's room for being a panicked mess of caffeine, and it's just a great time all around. The only real issues I have with episode 1 is a whole lot of pacing. After thinking that I was being bombarded with too many characters and a lot of talking to the camera, a lot of dialogue and exposition, eventually we get to the main dream, other than the one in the intro, 16 minutes into this pretty much 25-ish minute episode. I thought it was late, but once the actual dream sequence come in, they are clearly some of the best work of this TV series. The visuals are immaculate. It's clearly having this artsy, explorative, extra dimension to it, since reality can be whatever you make of it. And I absolutely adore the directions they take Riley as they go along. And you can extrapolate all sorts of extra ideas. You ever wondered why you can't run very fast in a dream? It's because the cameraman is moving the camera so slowly and you are the camera. If the camera's dolly wheel gets stuck on a little pathway, it means your foot is stuck in the nightmare. It works out. And whilst a lot of this initial episode is a lot of fluff and stuff you gotta take in and understand and appreciate the jokes when you've got your head around it all, it really does feel like the ending is a solid climax with the perfect build-up of everything going wrong, as well as a smash cut to the credits. For a first impression, it meandered along, but I actually started to really like it. Episode 2, we don't really get into the nitty-gritty either. It's just more expanding a lot of these characters and progressing the line a little bit further as Paula is downsized more and more, makes more angering mistakes. Zenny is sticking around to tell his ideals on art and hopefully lean her a little bit more and more towards the idea of improvisation and being less cliched. It takes 9 minutes before we get to another dream, this time being all vintage and black and white. Although this time it's Paula doing an old school kiddie dream just with an 80s vintage black and white aesthetic. She's not learning from her lessons, it's a character flaw, you know? Actually, I'd say in this episode, it's all of the behind-the-scenes stuff that actually is the flourishes of the episode, with one particular scene being a handheld shot chasing after Paula going through the back ends of the studio as she's running to her next location, and outright just crashing through a prop saying, "Stupid metaphor." It's tiny things like that I really come to appreciate, and it's clear there are so many probable hidden details even in the backgrounds of these frames that someone should get around to frame by framing. Maybe I should do that. I'll write a list now for 2025. But as Paula Persimmon is slowly getting into her character arc, there's also a nice reflective scene on there, emblematic of those nostalgic parents watching old homemade tapes of their kids on an old school TV, where she does the exact same thing, looking at some old dreams and memories, asking why did she have to grow up. It's both somehow a very niche bean character storyline, whilst also being able to reflect some of the real maturities we have to go through in life as we all age up. It's just really nuanced and lovely, and far beyond what I would expect out of a Pixar TV series, you know? And then come round to the 16-minute mark again, we get another dream now by the assistant turned main director Janelle, basically the intern that had been ghosted this entire time. That's the kind of character she is. Giving out a really nice, fantastical dream of Riley floating out of her bed, being in space, seeing herself and seeing the dress that she wants rather than the dress that her mum's giving her for this upcoming prom dance. Whilst we're following so much of the story about Paula, it's interesting to see the story of Riley coming to terms and worrying about this dress and this prom dance, and having all of these characters giving different perspectives and trying to guide her and influence her from the dreams that'll be forgotten into the reality the next day. But anyway, as we continue a little bit more chronologically through this, at this point we're at the halfway mark of the TV series, and probably the halfway mark of the video, so come subscribe if you want more new movie reviews. But also, my point outright is you should absolutely watch this TV series now. See episode 3 and 4 and come back to this, because we're going to start talking about the real endgame plot-ish points of the series. These are the things I like the most about these things, so I'm going to gush about it here. Spoilers from this point on in the review, as we continue to the really good stuff. So, with Paula slowly going down and down the ranks, bringing on Zenny again and coming along more with his artsy directions, we come to cafe maturity. Another new department bubble of the universe, apparently, but I love this so much. Apparently, it's also comparative to a little bit of the real world. I've never seen this personally. Maybe this is more of a Los Angeles thing. I'd love to see underground drama production monologues. I'm used to poems and stand-up comedy at most, and I only attend like one of those. But even still, it's down here we see new characters and new artsy stuff that's really just enticing. Down here, by Zenny's demands, we come to see a boyfriend-esque character on stage doing his monologue performance, which is someone who'll be plucked up later as an actor for future dreams, as well as, oh, look at this. This 2D character drawn on a piece of paper being the waitress at this cafe. They are an actual manifestation of a real notebook drawing that Riley made in real life, meant to be the representative of her dream state as a teenager. It's not quite the version of her we see in Inside Out 2 either. Maybe she's a little bit too young to even reach that point yet. Now she's in full blue hair rather than just the tuft of red she was considering in the sequel. But I just love these kind of expansions. It's more than just about the dream sequences, it's about all the different elements of reflecting Riley's life as she ages, creating a visual teenage version of herself, learning a little bit of her dreams and aspirations as a US rights lawyer for the UN. She's got some big political dreams in here. I mean, they mentioned it a little in Inside Out 2. They're going somewhere with this. But then also more minute things. She's drinking coffee now. She's considering a tattoo, maybe a septum piercing. It's a little bit of that puberty gags that would be in the sequel movie that I wouldn't be surprised if they got slashed and then delegated to this TV series. It works here brilliantly. I love this stuff. Anyway, this kicks off the new genre of dreams that Paula wants to push forwards, romance. And I love the fact that it gets its own marketing campaign in constant posters being built up for every given dream. That's just nice eye candy for the background to pick up. And so, pretty quickly into this episode as well, we get a preliminary dream of said boyfriend giving a little boyfriend dreamy serenade from a window. That's the dream this time around. And I love that he's nervous and also believes Riley is real in his reality. They do some interesting things with these characters, what can I say? And thankfully, they've delegated all of the other genre-based directors off to the side, so I don't need to think about them too much. The sports guy says everyone loves a comeback story, and Gigi, the nightmare lady, says she would have gone with a sparkly vampire. A Twilight reference in a 2024 TV series. That is a thing, actually. There's a lot of jokes in this movie that are both dated and dated, in the sense that this movie is clearly not set in 2024. Riley is much closer to the age of where she was in Inside Out 1 than Inside Out 2. It's an in-between, so I guess they're just referencing things from 10 years ago because it kind of is 10 years ago. And I hope that's intentional, because otherwise there's a lot of millennials in the writer's room and it's showing. But I assume it's intentional. and I've forgotten every other example, but there's a lot of older references in here. Oh well, I enjoyed it. And the alternative to these kind of jokes is one of the crew members at one point saying, "It's gonna be a long night, so I'm wearing a diaper." I don't know. Anyway, after a couple more interesting inventions for this dream universe, like mentioning making a clockbuster movie instead of a blockbuster, insinuating a dream that's so good you sleep through your alarm clock, as well as some mentions of an impulse control department, they need to get their act together, and mentioning 10 seconds till REM, everybody, places. The tiny stuff that a kid doesn't really care about, but I do. At the 11-minute mark, we then get our second dream, being a clash between Paula and Zenny, who are meant to be co-directors, director, assistant director, they're clashing. We now incorporate the concept of a second unit. This is another thing this TV series does really well. Honestly, I'm learning things, and I did film production at uni, but I went to a really bad uni for it. This is almost like a child's way, not just into learning maybe how dreams work, but a little bit into the inner workings of how film productions are made. We're learning concepts of directors and assistant directors beyond just cameraman and actor, and now we're learning about second units as well. It's nothing crazy, but hearing AD used up front and center in a kids TV series is refreshingly educational, as is all of the Inside Out brand, I guess. Anyway, with this second unit, we keep cutting back and forth between Zenny and Paula's visions to create this dream of Riley hanging out with this Canadian boyfriend. He's Canadian now. Paula makes it a horseback dream. Zenny makes it a love triangle. Paula goes crazy on a boyfriend creator machine, so that there's now a million boys, a boy band boy, a lumberjack boy, a Justin Bieber boy. Again, I'm telling you, the references, they're 10 years old. And also adds an insinuation that these machines build these boyfriends, but then where did this boyfriend appear in the first place from Cafe Maturity? I don't know. Either way, it's all been building up to this clash between director and director, going on mid-Riley dream. They're literally fighting back and forth between the two units, grabbing at this camera, and the next big expansion that I absolutely adore and have to gush along with, spinning Riley around, is the camera starts acting on its own. The wake up button that Angry has access to is no longer working. We start to explore, what a surprise in this movie about dreams, why didn't I expect this? Exploration of Inside Out's representation of sleepwalking. Riley, under so much stress about who she should take to the dance and what she should wear at the dance, alongside this little bean in her brain having her own career existential crisis and dragging around Riley's mental state to make it happen, goes absolutely haywire. And whilst we've learned in the last two movies that the emotions can't define and control Riley, neither can these beans. With Riley herself having her own conclusions in this automated state, saying things like, "Let me go find Bree and Grace, her two closest friends," or "I just want some space." This is just such a cool, obvious, ultimate climax experience to have, and this is only episode 3 out of 4. You can see where it all comes together. The camera starts controlling itself in a self-automated way. It's just brilliantly presented. They've got all sorts of signs and signatures, like an awake and asleep little meter that's flickering between the two. And technically they go on a beat about how it almost killed Riley because she almost stepped down the stairs. A bit extreme, but hey, I like a little bit of cells at work energy, which is kind of what this is. And just like that, Paula is chucked even further into the depths. Not quite fired, but very nearly. You have Anger screaming at the head of the studio with fire coming through the phone. Apparently, the different dream departments can communicate to each other across people, because the head of studio mentions that the other dream departments are upset with her, interrupting the parents' dreams, like the dad doing a flying dream that's expensive. Don't know how exactly a human body knows what another human body is dreaming, but hey, that's in there. And then, in the lead up to episode 4, Zenny, of all people, is fired because Paula puts it all on him, and Paula is about to be fired, but she gets one last shot. Cue episode 4. Now, before we actually go into the super cool plot details it's gonna get to, one other thing I do want to mention is a criticism I've had since my first impression of Dream Productions, and that is a little bit of bashing on the character designs, right? I've said I don't like these blobby characters. They're looking a little bit too generic and samey in the sense that Pixar have always done blobby characters for a long time, and I'm just sick of them. However, maybe it's because I was staring at them for 60 minutes at this point, but these specific character designs are starting to grow on me. I think it's very much more the main characters because they actually have accessories that showcases them. This is the same argument I would have 6 years ago when I made gaming content around the paper toads in the Paper Mario franchise. I love the paper toads in Thousand Year Door, where every toad has their own aesthetic, whether it's sunglasses, uniforms, or no legs or something. One of them's an Elvis Presley impersonator, you know? They're all the same body type, they're all the same kind of idea, but at least accessorizing them showcases a lot of their personality, whereas modern day paper toads might get a fold at most. I hate this. This is absolutely distressing to me. Here, this is the toad argument, but done at least a little bit better, you know? Zenny has a great aesthetic with his hair to represent that extra artsy-fartsy opinion that he has, and everyone generally looks pretty good. It's just their bodies are actual blobs. I guess it has to make sense because they are generally cells inside the body and they've already established their character designs from the initial movie. It's fine. This idea and criticism of their character design isn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, and I'm kind of warming up to it. The police guys and the security guards, they look more like donuts to me, and I'll always grumble at least a little bit about it, but I'm honestly not too fussed about the visuals on most of this TV series at this point. In fact, actually, pretty much across the board, I adore almost everything I've seen in this show so far. There's some pacing issues at the start that made me think I was overwhelmed, and the only last criticisms I really have is with the ending here, this final episode. So, while the whole show has had little artsy moments like a running handheld camera shot in the back studios or the whole mockumentary style in general, this one opens up with some nice classical music as a big dramatic opening, as we see Zenny in a sandwich shop, as I'm sure most Los Angeles creators probably do. Again, more nice meta commentary there. Also, we see Riley having a very nice chat with Dad about the whole concerns, which is nice to see a little bit of that representation in there. On the conceptual logic side of things, scripts for dreams are now being locked in with no deviation and improvising to stop the disaster of last time. And our new main actress star is the paper girl from Cafe Maturity. I love it. Teen Riley is on the menu this time, seemingly kind of based off of the pizza store girl from the first movie. At least I get those vibes slightly. A little bit goth, you know? Zenny, in his angry, bitter ways of being fired for something he didn't really do, he half did, but also he got it all pinned under the bus for him, decides to write a sabotaging dream that Paula's gonna have to commit to since her script will be locked in, and he does so by getting a collection of coffees and sneaking through the studios, past the guards and into the writer's room, because as long as you got a coffee, you can go anywhere, which is interesting commentary on the studios I've never heard of before. Maybe it's true. I can't try it now. I guess the secret's out, but I love that. I've never heard of that idea. That's brilliant to me. And as Paula's only real good dream disintegrates as well, like memories do, she sat at her desk in the biggest downgrade of a place, so far on the edge that you can see the rest of the archives of memories, which is, again, really cool symbolism. There's a lot of cool artsy stuff to digest here, and I'm not doing it justice in this overall sweep of a review. As we finally get to hear the horrendously sabotaged dream that Zenny has created, being a manifestation of all of Paula's mistakes. All of the issues of the past dreams all come together, crushing Riley through more of a nightmare experience and bringing back the mermaid unicorn, which is a major toy from her childhood that was once a good dream but is now outdated, old, and embarrassing. Ironically, showcasing some embarrassing memories without the existence of embarrassing the emotion, but it's fun, it's fine. It's the idea of forcing Paula to face her own irrelevance. Love it. But the final thing driving everything forwards is rejecting this idea, as Zenny has a change of heart because it's going to be bad for Riley, as after all, Riley is what matters most. So he goes running out trying to sabotage his own sabotage, running through a collection of people dressed as bowling pins because of course. This is the final arc of the TV series, and it's a nice one. It's all of the characters coming together to do something good for Riley. But this is the only other criticism I really have for this series. Whilst the beginning is over-bloated with too much exposition and dialogue all up front and early, this being the ending of episode 4 is a bit too quick of an ending solution for me. Because it's not just a matter of Zenny going to Paula and saying, hey, we've disagreed for 3 episodes, but hey, let's be good and work this out together. That's alright, but they also drag in a third character into this trio in the form of Janelle. The assistant director who's been upgraded to main director, did one really good dream and is generally like, leave me alone, old director, I know you're just trying to get stuff out of me. You never supported me, why would I care for you? Kind of vibe. She's not exactly an antagonist, but she clearly has, some understandable reservations. She gets one conversation and then runs with it. Because you see, Janelle was now the one set to put this script together, as Paula resigned after seeing the script. And though Janelle just turns around and agrees that this will be a disaster for Riley, the head of the studio comes in and says, I'm going to direct instead. And like, you know, it's a lot going on all at once, because I can see what they were going for here, but it just doesn't have the runtime it needs. It's a small thing. This Janelle character is almost a side character the whole time, and now is not, but it's still entertaining nonetheless. Everything else from here is just 10 out of 10. It's really just a blip on the pacing at the start and a blip on the pacing at the end. Everything else in between is just a feast for the eyes, the ears, and the brain. And maybe our dreams tonight, if we're lucky. At this point, everybody is kicked out. Zenny, Paula, and Janelle. They all say their sorries to each other, and they're saved from exile by a sheriff crew member. Again, not really an established character. He appears a couple times, reading some magazines. Alright. Anyway, this is the real final big plot moment that I just absolutely adore. It's the true ending of the TV series, and of course, Pixar are defined by their final acts. As I say every time I talk about a Pixar movie, I'm pretty sure it's this final climax ending that dictates the existence and pitch of the movie in the first place. And we know the concept. The head of the studio is pushing forwards with a dream that's absolutely terrible for Riley, so all of the characters are running around this dream set, making it right last second. You've got Janelle running in and switching out which dress Riley is going to be placed in when being confronted by herself as a teen now, played by the Notebook paper girl. You got the boyfriends resisting how to improv and outright sabotaging themselves from being in the dream in the first place to embarrass Riley in that sense. And you've got Paula fighting over the camera, once again keeping Riley stuck in this floating vibe, as anyway the head of studio was doing that anyway. She's not a good director and she sort of manhandles Riley in a way that she moves a little unnatural. It's a nice little detail there. There's then two final twists they do to resume this dream and make it good. One is melatonin. That's the name of the dog. Nice little pun there. They rub its belly to make everybody fall asleep around them except for Paula. This is kind of established. This is a dog. You might have seen it in the footage before. This is Paula's dog. Anybody who they lick falls asleep. Don't know what a blob dreams about when it falls asleep, but it does apparently. I don't think they established enough that rubbing the belly makes it release sleep spores, but I don't think they did at all. They're just the licking, so that's a little bit off, but fine. And also, the other thing they do, my absolute favorite thing, is Paula then dashes towards the camera, which is Riley's perspective, and pulls out the rose-tinted reality filter. It's a bit of a shame that 5 minutes earlier, Zenny actually says to Paula, take out the filter earlier, kind of taking away the surprise of that last minute. But I think it would have been better if we just immediately had Paula think of that in the moment to be like, whoa, we're doing something. But yes, while Riley is mid-dream, they take off the filter, so she is to see the set and the blobs as they are. And what happens instead is we create a void. It's not that Riley appears inside of the set, it's that the set goes into the reality of the dream. I guess the filter hits everybody else? Either way, they are now in the dream. They can see Riley themselves, which again as well is a really nice emotional moment that you kind of understate. Like, these characters work for Riley this whole time. Never before have they actually been able to see her herself, other than as a camera, and Riley can see them too. This isn't sleepwalking. This is the other big dream-related idea I'm anguishing that I didn't think would be represented. This is a lucid dream, where Riley understands that she is in a dream while she is in the dream. And from here we get a genuine human emotional moment. Because the point is, Riley's just been worrying about this dance the whole time. She doesn't really want the dress that her mum gave her. She doesn't really want to go to the dance at all. It's all just a lot of stress. So she just sits down, she asks if the dream is telling her that she shouldn't go to the dance, she asks what it even is that she's supposed to want, and they basically say, that's up for you to decide. And so, in this brief little moment of lucidity, Riley gets her own private dance, being able to include the people around her instead. In this moment, she dances as she manifests all of the dream elements around her. Also, that final embarrassing nightmare unicorn clam prop becomes just the tiny toy that it was in front of her. A little bit of reality building since this is all Riley's doing anyway. Everyone goes full improv mode, glitter, flying, dancing with the crew, all the good stuff. And after having a nice night, Riley starts waking up, with Paula saying, let's not say goodbye, let's just say good morning. Oh, mwah, I love it. This is the kind of perfect ending dream sequence I would want to see out of this series, and I hope we get more ideas. Maybe that's all they came up with. 4 episodes will do. I mean, I get it as well. As we then very quickly come to a very condensed epilogue to wrap everything together after 90 minutes. The head of the studio's been fired, the dog is still making people fall asleep, Zenny is now a director, Paula gets her own office after having like 3 or 4 in this TV series. And though Riley didn't remember the lucid dream she just had, we did come to learn that dreams can have another purpose, not just to drive and influence Riley, but to be a rehearsal, as she just dreams of the dance itself and what she would do in certain scenarios. And ending on the idea that these dreams don't even need to be remembered, just felt. Oh, I absolutely adore this. For a Pixar TV show, this has gone far and beyond what I would expect it to do. This is basically Inside Out 2.5, honestly. It has all of the marked qualities, and the only downside is the fact that there's not enough of it. 4 episodes? I barely call that a TV. It's a mini-series. It's probably been advertised as a mini-series. Are there more episodes incoming? I don't think so. It seemed like a pretty solid ending to me. But could it go further? Absolutely. They might have already used their best shots with lucid dreaming and sleepwalking, but the expansions they've brought out here is all just a brilliant addition that doesn't at all take away from the qualities of the main movies, and I think it's just perfectly done in a lot of ways, mostly. Now, the main creator credited towards this production is Mike Jones, who also created Soul and Luca. Though I'm not the biggest promoter of Soul, and Luca was mid-okay, this is my favorite Mike Jones thing so far, I gotta say. And though I came into this not looking forward to it and expecting it to be more Monsters at Work meh, instead, I am turned around to thinking this is just my Inside Out 3. I'm sure we'll get an Inside Out 3, so I don't need to worry about that, but I could absolutely see a second season of this. I've gotten over my initial criticism of the beans. Why do they look like beans? But to be able to bottle it up in the way that they have, representing Riley as they have, in a way that also makes these characters just as well integrated and caring for the Riley human body that they work for beyond just the emotions that are also doing the same thing. It's just so very nice that I couldn't praise it more, other than those tiny little criticisms on the side. It's a little bit rushed in places. The question is now how much of a success this will be as a TV series on Disney+. I don't know if we'll ever find out the numbers or whether it will influence anything, but I can at least stand here and say you should absolutely go ahead and see this series. I may have explained the general storyline and my thoughts on most of the bigger beats, but there's so many little details to pick up, to the point I really am tempted to do like an Easter eggs video for maybe all 3 Inside Out productions. Why not? I don't have the time, but I can think about it, I can dream about it. I would love to see a sequel series with all the other directors involved. I can consume them now. Give us all the extra emotions as well. Give us some anxious-based dreams or something along the way. Give us more puberty stories, not tweens, but, you know, mid-teenage properhood. Let's see if she ever went blue-haired, you know? I'd love to see all of it. I can't gush any more about a Pixar TV series, and hopefully this kind of quality can continue in further productions, because if it does, wow, are Pixar back. But I guess we'll just have to see how far that goes. For now, my name's been Daz. I've been talking almost as long as half of this TV series already. That's how short it is. God, I had a lot of thoughts, and that means you totally have time to watch it yourself. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video, and I shall see you in a little bit. Bye-bye now.